Alright, hello! So, I wanted to make a video about Kitasan Black, or to be more accurate, about the frontrunner meta of CM11, because I think it is really interesting. So first I'm going to talk about Kitasan Black, who is the meta horse for CM11. Her abilities are pretty much designed for this race course. Victory Cheer, her unique skill, hits perfectly on the acceleration window, and it is one of only two really reliable accelerations that we can get in this acceleration window. So Victory Cheer is going to be a 0.3 acceleration as well as a velocity increase. Kitasan Black also has a 20% speed growth and a 10% stamina growth. And additionally, she has taken the lead in her base kit, which means she doesn't have to run the Mihono Bourbon wit card. So all of this put together makes Kitasan Black just incredibly strong on this CM11 race course. So why is Kitasan Black not just completely dominating every CM11 room match? Why is she losing to Umas like Tamamo Cross? Why is she losing to Umas like Mihono Bourbon? Why is she losing in general to Umas who, on paper, should be weaker than her? The answer here is in the conditions for her unique. Kitasan Black has to be first or second in the final spurt to proc Victory Cheer. And so when she is losing, most times it's because she was not first or second when the final spurt started, which is exactly when that little line there is when you're watching the race. And so then we ask ourselves, okay, why is Kitasan Black not in first or second right here? And the answer is Mihono Bourbon, or really a lot of other horses, but mostly in room matches the answer is Mihono Bourbon. All else being equal, Valentine Mihono Bourbon will beat Kitasan Black every single time in a room match if there are two Valentine Bourbons in a room. The same is true for Umas like Summer Maru and Saiyan Sky, but Valentine Bourbon is both more popular, owned by more people, and ultimately easier to build, especially for this race course where she does have some very nice growths, and her unique will help her with her recovery needs as well. I can't really overstate how good Valentine's Bourbon's kit is for this race course. So if we compare these two Umas together, Kitasan Black does have taking the lead, which is a much stronger early game acceleration skill. Now, Valentine Bourbon can pretty easily get early lead, which is the white version of taking the lead, but you'll often see in room matches with two Kitasan Blacks and two Valentine Bourbons, the Kitasan Blacks almost always start the room ahead of the Valentine Bourbon because of their taking the lead. Unfortunately, this is kind of where Kitasan Black's good luck ends, because Valentine Bourbon has Escape Artist in her kit, which is a very strong mid-race skill for front runners. The white version of Escape Artist is Fast-Paced, which Kitasan Black does not have, and doesn't really have an easy way to access it. Valentine Bourbon also has Operation Cacao, which is both a recovery and a mid-race velocity increase skill. And Valentine Bourbon, of course, has that groundwork in her kit, which makes her much easier to build because you're not trying to inherit groundwork onto her like you are on Kitasan Black. You might have runs on Kitasan Black that are very, very, very good, but because you didn't inherit groundwork, it's not going to be a viable Uma. Bourbon doesn't have this problem, and so the more Bourbon runs you run, the higher chance you will have of getting a higher roll than running the exact same number of runs on Kitasan Black. So when we're comparing their mid-race ability, Valentine's Bourbon will have the very strong Escape Artist skill as well as Operation Cacao, whereas Kitasan Black has Leader's Pride, which is pretty decent, and Blast Forward, which I'll talk about a lot more later. However, crucially, Kitasan Black does not have Professor of Curvature. She just literally can't get it. And unfortunately for Kitasan Black, Professor of Curvature is very strong in CM11 because it can proc multiple times. But Kitasan Black cannot run her own card, and right now that is the only way to get the skill onto an Uma that doesn't have it in their potentials. So Kitasan Black just straight up cannot get the skill, and Mihono Bourbon can. So in a vacuum, Valentine Bourbon has two more mid-race golds that Kitasan does not. Plus, she also has her mid-race unique. So you can mitigate this a little bit by running the Stamina Saiyan Sky card on Kitasan Black for Escape Artist, and that is a pretty strong way to build her, but I would say that most people can't really afford the deck slot because the Stamina Saiyan Sky card is not amazing, and the sole purpose that it really serves is giving you a little bit better skills. And so the main problem with this is that deck slots are very tight for people who don't have an extremely wide deck pool. So because this is such a long CM, we need to run Super Creek, right? We need to run cards that can give us that gold stamina, and also cards that can just inflate our stats by a lot. So now let's talk about Blast Forward. Blast Forward is pretty much the gold version of long straightaways, which increases your velocity on a random straight. So It is a pretty nice increased target speed. It's a 0.35, but if we look at long straightaways, the double circle version, that's a 0.25. So when we're looking at the gold version of this skill, you're paying a lot of SP for a 0.1 increase in velocity, which is a decent increase, right? Like, it's not a total waste of skill points, but if you already have double circle long straightaways, is it really worth the SP when it is not a reliable mid-race skill? If Blast Forward procs here on the opening leg, it can be pretty good because it will help Kitasan to push forward earlier on. If it procs here in the middle leg, that's pretty much one of our best case scenarios. Because if it procs here in the middle leg, she can use this to try to take first place or second place in order to hit her victory cheer unique. Now, if it procs here, it's very interesting, right? Usually with a gold velocity skill, you would really want it to proc here for a carryover so that she can carry that velocity into the final spurt and start the final spurt at a higher base speed. But the sole purpose of taking mid-race skills on Kitasan Black is so that she can be in first or second position before the final leg starts so that she can hit victory cheer. So if you're hitting Blast Forward right here and you're in third place, there's a decent chance that it's not going to propel you into second place, and it's pretty much wasted as opposed to a skill that might hit here or even here, right? So it's both a good thing if Kitasan Black is already in first and second place to hit here, but it's also not a great thing if she's in third or fourth place and it hits this late, right? This is not going to help Kitasan hit her primary win con, which is victory cheer. And of course, if Blast Forward hits back here, it can be really useful as a final home stretch velocity, but oftentimes at this point, you've kind of already lost the race if you're not in first. So it can help you keep the lead versus like an end closer who was, closing on your location, but it's not what I would consider like, you've already hit your win con, right? And at this point, you're just trying to defend your win. So the main thing about Kitasan Black, and I think a couple other Umas in general, is that Kitasan Black's main win condition is victory cheer. It's hitting victory cheer from first or second place. And so when you're building Kitasan Black, you have to think to yourself, is my main focus going to be hitting her win con in the first place, or is it going to be defending her win after I have hit her win con? Which is where Blast Forward kind of gives a little bit of both, right? You can try to use it to hit that win con on these straights here, or you can try to use it to defend her win con on this final straight here, but you don't know which one you're going to get. So if you're trying to build a more reliable Kitasan Black, I don't necessarily think that Blast Forward is worth the SP over a skill that is going to hit more often in the mid leg to help Kitasan Black push forward and stay in that first and second slot so that she actually hits victory cheer. Because if Kitasan Black doesn't hit victory cheer, she is not winning the game. She loses her win con and that's it. So really the TLDR of everything I've been trying to explain is that the Kitasan Black versus the Valentine Mihono Bourbon and CM11 illustrates the crucial importance of mid-race skills especially on frontrunners, but really on everyone. In this screenshot here, you can see that there are 2 Valentine Mihono Bourbons and 2 Kitasan Blacks. And this is something I think that you'll see very commonly in room matches, especially if you bring some of these Umas on your own, is that Valentine Mihono Bourbon is almost always going to be pushing ahead of Kitasan Black in the mid-race because she has more mid-race skills available to her. Even though she doesn't have taking the lead and Kitasan Black does, Valentine Mihono Bourbon can use her inherently better mid-race skills to push ahead of Kitasan Black and deny Kitasan Black from her win condition acceleration. So the unfortunate part is that a front runner does need a buddy. If a front runner is the solo front, they're not really incentivized to continue pushing up. Usually for most front runner players, you want to bring 2 front runners so that they can continuously push one another up with overtake attempts. And this is how front runners are able to build more of a lead if there's more than one of them. But when you're trying to find a second front for Kitasan, you're running into this issue where most other fronts are going to have a better inherent mid-race than Kitasan herself will, because most other fronts will be able to use Professor of Curvature, or they have Escape Artist, or they have another mid-race unique, or a mixture of all 3 of those, right? So if we're using Kitasan plus another front, how can we make our Kitasan better than our opponent frontrunners so she can still take second place to our other frontrunner in the mid-race? Because we're already kind of assuming that this is going to be a lost cause, that Kitasan is not going to beat our other frontrunner, which is okay if Kitasan is second place, right? So generally, we still want to give our other frontrunner the opportunity to win, and our other frontrunner can win if they hit a lot of mid-race and also hit the inherited victory cheer, which is that 0.1 acceleration on them. How can we balance it so that they both can still win depending on who gets more mid-race, who's ahead, who's in first, and who's in second? Let's think about a hypothetical where we are bringing Kitasan Black and her buddy frontrunner, and an opponent brings one front, right? So there are 3 total fronts in the lobby. And let's say our Kitasan Black gets pushed into 3rd place and does not hit victory cheers, so she does not have any kind of chance of winning. We still want our second front to be able to win with a victory cheer proc. So we still want our second front to be able to win, so running a completely bricked front with Kitasan is not really in our best interest, with one notable exception that I will get into here in a moment. So really, we want both our fronts to be able to win, which generally means that our Kitasan is going to take second place to our front, because our front is going to be able to run Professor of Curvature. Maybe our front has Escape Artist. Maybe our front has a unique skill that hits in the mid-race that will help them take that first slot. So this is kind of a higher risk, higher reward strategy, because if we fail and Kitasan is in 3rd place, she has no win condition. She just cannot win if she is in 3rd place when the final spurt starts, which is a big problem for her. And it's a problem for our team building, which is one of the reasons why triple front is not entirely recommended outside of a couple of edge cases. So the alternative, and the reason that I keep saying that there's a caveat to this, is that you can run Kitasan Black with a Sacrificial Runaway front. So you can run Kitasan Black with Silent Suzuka. Silent Suzuka must be run in Unity Cup to get the Runaway skill, so she cannot run Trackblazer. This means that a Runaway Silent Suzuka will never have the stats to win in CM11. But a Runaway plus Kitasan composition will pull Kitasan forward without Suzuka competing for the 1st or 2nd slots, because Kitasan will be passing her in mid-race. So this allows for a little bit of flexibility, because you can still have an opponent running another front, and Kitasan can be second to them, but she can still hit victory cheer, right? If Suzuka is in front and then lags behind in the mid-race, your Kitasan now gets the opportunity to have 1st or 2nd place. You're not blocking your own Kitasan from one of her win condition slots. However, this can also buff your opponent Kitasan as well, and it can buffer your opponent frontrunners in general. So you want to be kind of careful running this, and you want to make sure that if you're running a composition like this, that your Kitasan is very strong, all right? So how do we get more reliable mid-race on Kitasan Black? We want to definitely make sure that we are pushing ahead in the early race with groundwork and taking the lead, because that's kind of the strongest that Kitasan Black is going to be over other front runners, where she is able to push forward very, very early, very, very quickly with that 0.6 acceleration. And then what do? So we want to take as much mid-race as humanly possible in order to secure a win condition. So we want to take skills like Corner Adept. Kitasan Black does have an event that gives her Corner Adept in her career. And you always want to take Corner Adept here, because Corner Adept can still proc multiple times. So you initially just want to give her as much velocity as you can. I would personally say that Blast Forward is secondary. I feel like Blast Forward, in the best case scenario, is mid-race to help you win. And in the worst case scenario, is kind of a win more. So I would personally rather take velocity skills that are definitely going to help me reach my win condition. And additionally, Blast Forward is an extra 0.1 velocity over long straightaways double circle for additional SP. And that SP you could reinvest back into other skills that you know are going to proc in the mid-race, such as Slipstream or Playtime's Over, Tail Held High, Feature Act. Like, all of these skills are definitely going to be procking in the mid-race rather than in the late race, or too early to do a whole lot, or, you know, after the spurt begins. So I do think that long straightaways double circle is a good pickup, and I do think that Blast Forward is a good pickup if you have the extra SP for it and nothing else to buy, but I don't think that it's so important that you would want to drop pretty much any other reliable mid-race skill for it, because those mid-race skills are a sure bet that they are going to help you get to that win condition of being 1st or 2nd when the spurt starts. So the TLDR for Kitasan Black, you have the acceleration to win the game. Victory Cheer is your win condition, and hitting Victory Cheer is your #1 priority, because if you don't hit Victory Cheer, you lose the game. No other fronts can win just off of Victory Cheer, because Victory Cheer is only a 0.1, and they'll probably lose to most end closers if they just hit Victory Cheer without really trying. So other fronts have to build mid-race for a lead over the end closers, so that end closers can't close in on them after they hit their 0.1 acceleration. Usually this also means that other frontrunners are going to be trying to build more late race because they can't just rely on such a weak acceleration to win the game. So other fronts are building mid-race so that they can beat end closers. As Kitasan Black, you have to build mid-race to beat them at their own game so that you can be in that position to hit victory cheer. If you're not using Kitasan, you just kind of run two fronts with better mid-race and deny slots 1 and 2 so that no other Kitasans can win. You're not kind of stuck like trying to build off of this inherent disadvantage that Kitasan has for the mid-race. You are actually able to pick fronts that have stronger mid-race so that you can try to push ahead more and win it a little bit easier. These are fronts like Summer Marizensky, Saiyan Sky, Valentine Bourbon. I'm sure there's other ones there, but really fronts that can run Professor of Curvature and have some form of front skills in their kit are all pretty decent options. And after all that, like, add an end closer with straightaway spurt, right? So, like, end closers do have their own meta that they're building around, but you can run just like a solo end closer with straightaway spurt and still have a decent backup win condition if your fronts fail, if you're not using Kitasan here. So yeah, that's my frontrunner overview. I do think that fronts are in a really interesting position in the CM because they're simultaneously very strong and also, like, you have to really be careful about how you're building them because if you just kind of slap a bunch of skills together, you might not be building towards the win cons that you need in order to win the game. Hopefully this helps, and hopefully you can see where this might be applicable in your own CM rooms that you're running or in the CM proper. Either way, I just thought it was interesting, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about it and talk a little bit about kind of the interesting conundrum that frontrunners are in. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I will see you all next time.